What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday morning. Back with another edition of One True Sport Daily. I am your guest host once again today, Ryan Droste of the Top Rope Nation podcast, sitting in for my guy, Zach Haydorn, who will be back on Thursday. So I'll be here with you today and then tomorrow. And then Zach will be back to take over in the chair once again. But I've had a blast doing this. Hopefully I can do it again in the future. It's been a lot of fun talking with the One True Sport faithful here each and every morning. Today, we're going to dive into what we saw last night in Indianapolis, Indiana, with Monday Night Raw, which was a pretty big show. Lots of major points going on in the major stories in WWE, some pivots going on, a hot crowd in Indianapolis as WWE seemingly has every single week these days. We're going to talk about all of that. We got Death of WCW, or sorry, Who Killed WCW, and the finale airing tonight. We can talk a little bit about that if you guys want. Hit me up in the chat. Let me know what's on your mind this Tuesday morning. We'll get to as many chats as we can. And yeah, just let me know what you want to talk about. This show is a lot of fun when you guys are interactive. We'll get to Raw here in just a second. But of course, before we get to Monday Night Raw, let's get some housekeeping out of the way. If you're tuning in right now, you're probably familiar with the channel, but if not, this is One True Sport, a brand new project with some of the biggest legends in the history of professional wrestling involved. People like Arn Anderson, people like the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, Jake the Snake Roberts, Rob Van Dam, Greg Gagne, Bill Alfonso, Kurt Angle. The list goes on and on. If you're not already, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, subscribe to the channel, follow us on social media, One True Sport. You can become a member, get exclusive benefits, exclusive live streams. Check out onetruesport.com. In fact, we talked about this yesterday. There's a great question and answer stream last night with the one and only Dustin Rhodes for members only. If you want to have access to those events in the future, onetruesport.com is the way to do that. You can also check out a brand new edition of Straight Talk with the Boss featuring Magnum TA and Greg Gagne. That video just went out a little bit ago on fourhorsemannetwork.com, brought to you by the fine folks here at onetruesport.com. And if you guys want to hear more of me, the guest host the last couple of days, you see the logo down in the bottom of the screen. Check out the Top Rope Nation podcast. Would love to have your support. It's myself. It's my co-host, Justin Joint and Jesse Velasquez. We've been doing the show since 2016. We got a Patreon with bonus shows if you like what we do, but we got a free show each and every week. We've got a YouTube channel. You can find it. Just search Top Rope Nation, and the audio is available wherever podcasts are found. Again, just search Top Rope Nation. Would love to have your support. Just tune in one time, see what you think of the show. If you enjoyed me sitting in here on One True Sport Daily, I think you'll like it. So Monday Night Raw last night from Indianapolis, Indiana. Of course, WWE was touting the major big-time agreement they made with the Indiana Sports Authority to bring the next edition of the Royal Rumble next February to Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium. They mentioned that on the show. They played a video about this on the show. We had Tyrese Halliburton there in the front row behind the announcers. They talked about a future edition of WrestleMania, SummerSlam. They've never made an agreement like this with any other city to bring all these marquee events there in the future. So they were definitely touting that. They had a sold out crowd in Indianapolis. I mean, packed all the way up to the last row. You could tell by watching it. And I mean, contrasting what we saw in the production department. I talked about this on the show yesterday with AEW and how they need to improve their production and the way the shows look. Get back to how AEW looked 5 years ago when they started. WWE, bright lights. I mean, they want you to see that sold out crowd. You know, in the past, you'd have kind of the darkened arena with the spotlights on the ring. I mean, it really stood out to me last night how the entire arena was lit up all the way up to the top row throughout the broadcast. Liam, I appreciate it. Thank you for subbing to the channel. Check us out on the regular. You'll enjoy the show. Thank you very much, sir. So the show last night, Raw, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really interesting what they did with Drew McIntyre right away off the start. So Drew McIntyre, of course, just a week ago, he does that angle where he is quitting the show, or he's quitting WWE. But then, as we talked about yesterday here on One True Sport Daily, Drew McIntyre attacked CM Punk ruthlessly in his hometown of Chicago, Illinois. or I should say Rosemont, Illinois, at the Allstate Arena on Friday. And McIntyre comes through the crowd and he gets into the ring, and he basically last night on Raw aired his grievances. He talked about how CM Punk has screwed him over and over in front of his hometown fans, cost him the title at Clash at the Castle. And still, the WWE fans cheer this guy. He talked about how CM Punk cost him the title at WrestleMania, and still, these fans cheered this guy. And man, Drew McIntyre was tremendous. Drew McIntyre is my favorite thing on WWE television. I think he is the most captivating character, and he has been for over a year now. And he is really sinking his teeth into this storyline. And I think one thing that is true throughout the history of professional wrestling is that if you're playing a heel character and you can come up in your mind with some thread of reality to what you're saying and really believe in the heel framework of what your character believes in, that heel is going to come across way more authentic on television. And that is 100% the case with what Drew McIntyre is doing right now. Because if you think about it, what he's saying is correct. Drew McIntyre was screwed by CM Punk twice out of the title. And I mean, if you're objective about this, and if, wrestling was a legitimate sport and there was no scripting going on, what did Drew McIntyre do? Well, he mocked CM Punk after his injury in the Royal Rumble. That's true. He mocked him pretty unmercifully. But Punk has now cost him the world title twice. He has directly intervened in his matches. And oh, by the way, later on Monday Night Raw, Drew McIntyre was revealed to be entering not the tournament, but he's going to be in a triple threat next week to see if he can gain access into the Money in the Bank match. I have a feeling CM Punk is once again going to cost Drew McIntyre his opportunity, this time at a world title shot, by screwing him some way in the Money in the Bank match in Toronto here in just under 2 weeks. So objectively speaking, Drew is in the right. He is getting screwed by CM Punk. And I talked about this on my show right after Clash at the Castle. Punk is really behaving like a traditional heel in the way that he is costing this guy match after match. And of course, Drew is frustrated, but of course, CM Punk for now is a babyface. I personally can't wait for the day when CM Punk becomes a heel again. I think he is much more entertaining as a heel. But, he's still kind of fresh in WWE's fans' minds right now. He came back at Survivor Series. He got injured almost immediately. He's been away for a while. So, that new car scent has not worn off for CM Punk quite yet. I think eventually, when his crowd reactions start to die down a little bit, they will turn him, and CM Punk as a heel will be phenomenal. And maybe they do a double turn down the road and people warm up to Drew McIntyre. We did see before this Punk feud, McIntyre, even as a heel, was starting to get cheered because fans recognize how good he is in this role, right? They recognize that Drew McIntyre is really damn good at his job, and fans respect that, and eventually they start cheering it. But right now, when he's matched up with CM Punk and Punk is mega over as a babyface, that's not going to be the case. So I think down the road, the narrative's probably going to change a little bit in this feud. But yeah, Drew's the heel. He played it up perfectly last night on Raw. How can you fans cheer for this guy based off of what he has done to me in front of my family? The match he dedicated to his sister over a Clash at the Castle, and he screwed him out of the title. You can't disagree with that. It's all correct. And then he showed this bracelet that Punk got from a fan that says AJ and Larry on it. Of course, Larry being Punk's dog and AJ his wife. And he made fun of this bracelet, and he made fun of Punk's ugly dog, which I thought was really funny. And he put that bracelet on. If you didn't see on SmackDown, he had taken this off of Punk's wrist and stole it from him. This being something that would irk CM Punk. And I thought the way he sold this on Raw during the promo was really good. And he said he's going to win the briefcase and he's going to go on to become world champion. We'll see how that plays out. But this was a phenomenal promo, really good stuff from Drew McIntyre. He was very believable throughout it. It had that ring of truth to everything he was saying. Really, really liked the work we saw out of Drew McIntyre last night. Let me know what you guys thought here in the chat. All right, what else did we get on Raw? We got a match between Braun Breaker and Ludwig Kaiser, which was probably a little longer than you would expect given, the push that Braun Breaker has had since he came up to the main roster. This one ended in a DQ after Sheamus got involved, given the history between these guys. The match was pretty good. Breaker hit his top rope Frankensteiner, calling to his uncle Scott Steiner's work from back in the day that looked really, really good. And it looks like Braun Breaker is turning babyface. Definitely throughout this match, commentary was pushing him more as the babyface. I felt throughout everything. So decent match. Again, like I said, much longer than you would have expected. And then we got the interference from Sheamus towards the end. Okay, what else did we have last night? Oh, yes. Money in the Bank qualifying match. The women were out there first. Triple threat. Lyra, Valkyria, Kairi Sane, Shayna Baszler. I thought the right call was made here. Big fan of all three of these women, especially Kairi Sane. But I think Lyra Valkyria, being the newer kind of hot figure in the women's division, this was the way to go. She got the victory. We're kind of seeing them playing up. Damage control is not functioning as they should. And, Kairi Sane is definitely, as all the members are, a little frustrated with what's going on in damage control and their inability to get victories lately. So, yeah, Io Sky was not very happy that Kairi Sane lost the match last night. On the men's side, had a triple threat match for the Money in the Bank qualifying match, and we had Braun Strowman, Chad Gable, Bronson Reed. All right, let me just say, because we've talked about this in the past after the debut of the new Wyatt Six group. They have done a really good job so far. I know we're only two weeks into it, but making you believe that everything happening with the Wyatt Six is legitimate. If you saw their debut on Raw last week, I mean, it looked like Chad Gable had been killed by this group. It looked like he took a bullet to the head. Well, he shows up at Raw. He's got the bandage over the temple where he had that big wound last week, and he is accompanied by security backstage. He doesn't want to get attacked again. He's kind of covering his face. He goes out there for this match. Chad Gable gets the victory. I personally think Chad Gable should have been IC champion. I don't really understand the booking here, but they're putting him in the Money in the Bank match. Could he win the Money in the Bank? Sure. I think an IC title run for Chad Gable would have been more ideal, but they're trying to, pick him up again here, I guess, after losing for the fifth time in challenging for the Money in the Bank, or in challenging for the Intercontinental Championship. So I guess if you're looking to protect his character and give him a win, it makes sense. He won with the moonsault, which, 25 years ago, a moonsault was a way to win a match. But Chad Gable, being such a smaller guy in stature to Bronson Reed, he won with the moonsault on Bronson Reed, which was a little bit hard to buy, I thought, as the finish. But after the match, the big story was Gable celebrating. He says Chad Gable cannot be killed. And then, of course, the lights go out. And we get that spooky music. And we get smoke filling the ring. In fact, when the lights went out, you could see the guy grab the hose to start filling smoke in the ring. And you guys, I could have sworn I read a report last week that said there was going to be no superpowers, or any of that that kind of lore with this group. There wasn't going to be anything above and beyond what a real human being could do when it comes to the Wyatt Six group. Well, then I think there's some superpowers going on, because where is this smoke coming from, you guys? Where's the smoke coming from? We had it in the debut too. So I don't think it's accurate to say that this group is going to have no superpowers and they're not going to do anything like that. Maybe superpowers is not the right word. I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but yeah, I mean they're definitely going all in on the spooky stuff. And out comes Sister Abigail, Nikki Cross, and she's crawling across the ring at Chad Gable. Really, really creepy stuff. Chad Gable gets out of there. She goes over to Michael Cole at ringside. His announce partners are laid out, and she hands this VHS tape to Michael Cole, which they played later in the show. And the VHS tape was a sit-down interview segment between Uncle Howdy and Bo Dallas interviewing himself. And they brought up Bray's death and, how he has been affected with his brother's death and what was planned, for this group before his brother's death and all of that. I thought it was an effective segment. It was believable. Supernatural, Dominic. Yes, supernatural. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Superpower, supernatural. It's definitely a supernatural element if you got smoke coming out of nowhere filling up the ring, right? So we'll see how far they go with the supernatural stuff. I don't really want to see people throwing lightning bolts from their hands like Alexa Bliss. That was a little bit too much for me when she was working with the Fiend. Maybe Alexa Bliss will get involved with this group in the future. We'll have to see. But yeah, I thought for a second week here with the Wyatt Six, it was again pretty well done. I think what remains to be seen though is what happens when these people have to wrestle matches. And is Bo Dallas charismatic enough to carry this group long term in front of the crowd? And we shall see. We know that when Bray Wyatt led the Wyatt family, he was an ultra charismatic guy. You could buy him in that cult leader role. Bo Dallas in the past has not shown that kind of charisma, but certainly he's got the gene pool to be successful in pro wrestling at a high level. Certainly, if his brother could do it, you would hope that he could do it. I haven't seen that from him yet, but this is his chance to prove it. So will the Wyatt Six work out long term? We'll see. I'm skeptical because these supernatural gimmicks in modern WWE history have had their work cut out for them, despite how creative the people, behind the scenes that have been crafting those gimmicks, people like Bray Wyatt, and how brilliant people like Bray Wyatt are. They've still had a hard time translating long term on WWE television. So we'll have to see if they can keep us hooked long term. But yeah, I thought, just like Andrew said in the chat, it was well done last night. Well done. All right, let's move on through Monday Night Raw. Let me scroll through my notes here. We did have the first television defense of the women's tag team championships last night with Isla Dawn and Alba Fire retaining the titles over Katana Chance and Kaden Carter. Decent match, getting some new blood here, into the women's tag team title scene, which I think is good. They want to make these belts have some value. I thought Bianca and Jade were on their way to doing that. It was stunning that they took the titles off of them. I would still look for them to get the titles back fairly soon, not 6 months from now. I do think they'll get another run with the titles, but for right now, this was a decent match. And yeah, after the match, we had Damage Control come out, attack the championship holders. And so it looks like Damage Control is going to challenge for the women's tag team titles next, before we get to the rematch with Bianca and Jade. The other major talking point last night had to do with Seth Rollins and Damian Priest and them building up, only now for the second week heading into the pay-per-view in less than 2 weeks. Seth Rollins challenging Damian for the World Heavyweight Championship at Money in the Bank. And effective face-to-face promo last night on Raw. They made an interesting stipulation. If Seth Rollins does not win the title from Damian Priest, he will not challenge for the World Heavyweight title as long as Damian is the champion again. And if Seth Rollins wins the heavyweight title, Damian Priest has to leave Damage Control. And it was interesting. Damian Priest said in this segment that Damage Control needs him a lot more than he needs them. Where do we think they're going with this? Let me know in the chat. I kind of talked about this in the past, that I was hoping Seth would win just to give the world title match a little more star power at SummerSlam. Nothing against Damian Priest, but it's a huge show. But the more I thought about this last night and the way that they went with this new stipulation, I feel that Priest is going to retain and Seth won't be able to challenge. And maybe this is how they get Seth Rollins back into the title picture on the other brand long term. Maybe long term in order to get a shot at Cody's title. If a trade or something happens down the line, he's got to defeat Roman Reigns. I think Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns is a long-term direction in the company right now. I think Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns has a good chance of happening at WrestleMania next year, because it's looking like Cody's going to wrestle The Rock at Mania if the schedules work out. So Roman's going to need a big opponent across the ring from him. And so, yeah, I think they might transition to Seth and Roman down the line after the Bloodline Civil War story is over, but that would keep Seth out of, the world title picture if he loses here to Damian Priest. Let me know what you guys think here. Let me check the chat right now. Yeah, the Judgment Day breakup does seem inevitable. Oh, let's see. What else? Did I say Damage Control? Sorry, stumbling over my words. Yeah, Seth is definitely, him and Punk are clearly the top baby faces right now, which on Raw at least, which makes it interesting because that's another match they want to do here before too long, is have Seth Rollins and CM Punk. We know that was a match they were going to do at WrestleMania before the injury to, I guess both guys got injured. And they want to do that. And who's going to play heel there? They can do babyface. Personally, I'd rather have Punk playing up the heel in that feud, but that's another match they have to get to. That's probably not going to involve the world title. It could involve the world title, but it doesn't necessarily need it. So I'm thinking Seth Rollins is going to come up short here at Money in the Bank. Yeah, Punk has shown ever since 2022 now to be pretty injury prone. Eddie's right, and that's why I don't know that when him and Rollins face off, it's going to be for the world title, because you can't really put a world title on CM Punk or even like pretend to, just given his injury history. It'd be too risky, I think. Yeah, Drew was doing the Lord's work. Liv Morgan making the rounds on Raw last night with Judgment Day. She was seen backstage alone with Finn Balor. She was teasing Dominic Mysterio about some text messages, some illicit text messages that she had sent him earlier in the show. And she was able to convince R-Truth to get his group, him and The Miz, the tag team champions on Raw, to defend the titles against the Judgment Day. And Miz, who was doing guest commentary for Pat McAfee last night, was very, very frustrated by this. And that ended up main eventing the show. And in fact, we did have the titles change hands. The Judgment Day, once again, Raw tag team champions. I thought that this was definitely the right way to go. I know people like Awesome Truth and they get a good pop from the crowd, but to me, not the most viable world tag team champions, so I think switching the titles here back to Judgment Day made the most sense, with Balor and McDonough winning the titles in the main event. Liv Morgan got involved in the finish, so she's continuing to tease her involvement with Judgment Day long term. We're still waiting, for Rhea Ripley to come back and to see how she plays into all this. I sure hope she can get back in time for SummerSlam. Despite how hot this company is, Rhea Ripley, speaking of doing the Lord's work, Rhea Ripley in the women's division over the last year, the best thing to watch. Hopefully she's healthy here before too long and we get Rhea Ripley back on the scene. So yeah, that was Monday Night Raw last night. A good show, 3 hours, but it went by pretty fast, I thought. Vice TV tonight, the final episode of Who Killed WCW. I assume they're going to go into Bischoff and Fusion Media and the group that was trying to purchase WCW at the end. And in fact, they were very close to purchasing WCW at the end until the network canceled WCW programming. And then the company was worth pretty much nothing, which is why WWE got it for just a couple of $1 million in the end and purchased their big rival. Should be an interesting watch tonight. If you want to see full reviews of Who Killed WCW, check out the Top Rope Nation YouTube channel. I've done several long form videos with my co-hosts on those 3 episodes so far. We had some pretty big thoughts on Who Killed WCW and how that all went down, and definitely got a little emotional. And what I mean, I don't mean we were crying our eyes out, but got a little angry looking back at the end of WCW. So you can check that out over on the Top Rope Nation YouTube channel. And we'll definitely be reviewing on my podcast episode 4 after it airs tonight. I'll be back tomorrow for the last time here for now on One True Sport Daily, sitting in for Zach Haydorn. He'll be back on Thursday, and we'll talk about probably AEW Dynamite. Their go-home show for Forbidden Door. That'll be tomorrow night, so we'll be talking about what has been announced for the show tomorrow morning, talk any breaking WWE news as it comes about. Looking forward to talking with all of you tomorrow morning. Make sure you tune in, same time here on the One True Sport channel. Subscribe to the channel. Turn notifications on so you don't miss it. And we'll see everyone then Have a great Tuesday, everybody. See you tomorrow morning.